A recent study by Cancer Research UK has revealed major differences in how skin cancer affects men and women. And the reasons may just surprise you. According to the study, men are more likely to develop melanoma, which is the deadliest form of skin cancer on their torso, back, chest and abdomen. Meanwhile, for women, melanomas are found on lower limbs from the hips to the feet. Researchers believe that the pattern is influenced by typical clothing choices. Now, last year, the rates of melanoma skin cancer reached an all-time high in the United Kingdom, with new diagnoses increasing by a quarter from 21 to 28 in every 100,000 people. And that's between 2007 and 2009 and 2017 and 2019. Melanoma skin cancer is the fifth most common cancer in the United Kingdom, and the number of cases has been increasing over the last few decades. According to Cancer Research UK, the primary cause is excessive UV radiation, which is the main risk factor for melanoma. Cancer Research UK reports that 85% of melanomas in the United Kingdom are caused by excessive UV radiation, UV exposure. And this is partly due to more people being exposed to intense sunlight on holidays abroad. While UV exposure is the main cause, other factors like family history and having too many moles can also increase the risk of melanoma. Despite the rise in skin cancer cases, there's also some good news. Skin cancer mortality is decreasing. According to the study, 9 in 10 adults diagnosed with melanoma will survive the disease for 10 years or more. What is also important to note here is that prevention is, of course, better than early detection. By practicing sun safety, we can stop melanoma cases happening at all. Shifting our focus to India now, where the Jammu and Kashmir police is changing the playbook in its fight against terror. For the first time, Jammu and Kashmir Elite Special Operations Group is being trained in jungle and high-altitude warfare. This is a direct response to the brutal terror attack in Pahalgam's Baisaran Valley on April 22nd, where 26 innocent lives were lost in a ruthless terror attack carried out by terrorists who vanished into the dense jungle moments later. And that was a wake-up call. Now, in an aggressive counter-offensive, the Jammu and Kashmir police is taking the fight into the jungle. The Special Operations Group, also known as SOG, is now undergoing intensive jungle warfare training across multiple locations in the Union Territory. As per official data, less than 140 terrorists remain active in Jammu and Kashmir, but the threat is far from over. While in Kashmir, there are around 65 foreigner terrorists. In Jammu division, there are around 55 to 57 terrorists, and most of these foreign terrorists are highly trained in jungle warfare. The SOG was formed in the 90s to combat the threat of rising terrorism. But today's battlefield is different. Denser forests, higher peaks, and more elusive enemies. This new phase of training will determine how secure the valley stays in future. And with the annual Amarnath Yatra around the corner, the security forces are leaving no stones unturned to ensure that the cross-border terror attempts can be nipped in the bud. The Jammu and Kashmir police is drawing a firm line in the forests, and the training has just begun.
Kashmir Police's Special Operation Group personnel are being trained in high-altitude warfare. This comes right after the Pahalgam attack. That group of SOG men have been sent across various high-altitude warfare schools in the Union Territory and across the whole country to train them specially for the high-altitude warfare. This comes right after the Pahalgam attack, in which terrorists killed 26 people, civilians, and after that vanished into the thick forest of the Anantnag district. The security forces believe there are over 100 foreign terrorists present on the mountainous ranges of Jammu and Kashmir, and they're very highly trained to carry out attacks on security forces and then vanish into these dense forests. And that's why now Jammu and Kashmir police is training the SOG personnel in high altitude warfare so that they can counter these terrorists and neutralize all of them hiding in various forests across Jammu and Kashmir. With video journalist Firoz Idris Lone for WION World is One.
George Floyd. Does the name ring a bell? Yes. He's the same man who was killed by a police officer rather brutally in broad daylight during an arrest. A murder that shook America. The very face behind the reprisal of the Black Lives Matter movement that rocked the US once again in 2020. 5 years on, Americans across the country are still remembering Floyd and seeking answers and reforms to the rather pressing issue of racial injustice in America. At religious services, concerts and vigils held nationwide, thousands are marking the 5th anniversary of George Floyd's murder. Concerts, worship service and other forms of commemorations were held at George Floyd Square in Minneapolis. On Sunday, Floyd's family gathered in their hometown of Houston near his gravesite for a prayer service. Civil rights activists and leaders joined the demonstrations in numbers, demanding police and judicial reforms that protect black people, minorities and those defenseless in America against atrocities. They also signal a distinct shift in narrative in the United States of America that changed its tone from safeguarding black lives to championing the cause for white grievance.
To the nation to continue to fight for federal law, stand with Congresswoman Williams and others as we change the law. We need legislation for justice for all Americans, rather than a hallucination that there is some genocide against whites in South Africa.
The chilling murder of Floyd had sent shockwaves across the nation and led to mass demonstrations against racism and police brutality. Many hailed it as a moment of national reckoning with the issue of racism itself. But 5 years later, where does America stand as far as tackling racial attacks are concerned? A problem America has grappled for far too long. In the recent past, racial attacks in the US have only risen. In 2023, a black honor student was shot dead by a man based out of Kansas City for mistakenly ringing his doorbell. In 2022, 3 men were convicted of racially motivated hate crimes in connection with the killing of a young black man in Georgia. In 2020, a 26-year-old black woman was killed by the Louisville police, who forced into a house after midnight. And there are many more, thus making it crystal clear that racism and racial attacks are a living reality in the US till date. Have any reforms promised in the wake of Floyd's death been implemented so far? And have they brought about the desired changes? Not quite, it seems. In 2021, the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act aims to address law enforcement reforms. It failed to pass the bipartisan package in the US Senate. In 2022, former US President Joe Biden signed an executive order to implement as much of the legislation to promote safe and accountable policing. And a recent poll by Pew Research found that 8 out of 10 African Americans have experienced personal discrimination. Why? Because of their race or ethnicity. And close to 72% believe the demonstrations in 2020 did not lead to changes that improve the lives of black people living in the US. In January 2025, the administration of US President Donald Trump halted police reforms agreements. Many Americans think this has impacted the very course correction that America needed with regards to the treatment meted out to people of color. Floyd's dying words, "I can't breathe," that became a rallying cry for justice. It also stood for freedom and dignity of individual lives. And honoring him is incomplete without the required judicial intervention, which is required to address the issue head on. Time is ticking for leaders and voices of authority who need to rise now to the occasion and resolve the differences that divide people, then unite.